Great. This is Mamadou with Timbuktu, and I'm excited for this edition of Beyond the Brush. Now, I want to check in with our guest today. Can you tell the people, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Katarra Peterson. I am an artist based here in the Boogie Down Bronx, and I do abstract mixed media paintings that feature Kanekalon, synthetic hair, hand stitched to the surface, alternative printing. I do whatever I want.
I
I
love
do
that.
whatever I want.
Okay, great. And so, really excited to dive into your works. But first, can you break us to the beginning and tell us how did you fall in love with the arts?
Shout out to Lily and Frankie, my mom and dad, both very creative people. I grew up in Cleveland and they were young parents. We didn't have a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
but the Cleveland Museum of Art was free. And we would go feed the ducks and all the geese outside of the museum. And then they would let me go run around. And around the time, I want to say I was like second grade, like 7, 8 years old, they were offering free art classes
Mm.
for kids on the weekends. And at that point, I was like, just leave me here. Don't take me home. And from there, they encouraged me and I just stayed with it. I thought maybe I would go into fashion design. Um, I was really into figurative art for a long time. And then, interestingly enough, I didn't think that I was a painter. And then,
Mm.
sophomore year of high school, in order to take AP art, I was forced to take a painting class. Shout out to Ann Kamik. And I fell in love with it. So that was several many years ago. And yeah, I just had great examples. Denise Buckley, my high school art teacher, I remember, in addition to being a really gifted sculptor, she had work in the Spider-Man movie
Oh, wow.
at the time, like the first Sam Raimi movie that came out. And I was like, so there are ways to be an artist in the world.
Yeah.
And I went to undergrad and started my master's degree. I didn't end up finishing it, but yeah, it seemed like it was always in me, and I was lucky enough to have people who always encouraged it.
That's beautiful. So, growing up, it sounds like you just had a lot of examples from your family and really institutions, educational institutions.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
for sure. And also just like a curiosity,
Yeah.
like my mom was in education my entire life. And
Okay.
so there was always a propensity for wanting to look into things and explore
Hmm.
things, try new things, think critically, think analytically, look closely, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it was like a mindset in addition to just wanting to make stuff.
Yeah. So, can you tell us about that mindset of being very inquisitive and wanting to explore and what have you? Like, how does that impact your artistic style today?
Um, I think that it inspires me to make things that I haven't necessarily seen before. It's
Hmm.
like I may draw on my art historical references or my contemporaries or influences like that, but for the most part, it's like, and this is really like my whole soapbox. Anyone who's ever read my annoying Instagram stories would agree, but like imagination is like all of this stuff is made up.
Yeah.
Credit scores, tax
Hmm.
brackets, all that stuff. Like we brought it out of thin air, and now this is what our world looks like based on this collective imagination that we all shake hands and agree upon proverbially. And so I think that it's the job of artists to imagine something else,
Hmm.
extract it from our minds, present it to the world. And even if it's not like solving a problem or answering a question, like even if it just makes you sort of stop and
Yeah.
be curious for a second, it's like it sort of short circuits what we sort of take for granted as the norm or the way that things should be. And so I think that it's very important for that, particularly abstract work.
Yeah. And so, me personally, I'm a huge fan of abstract art myself,
Mm,
just because of what you just said. Of it's not as cut and dry, such as a portrait of an important person
mhm.
or what have you. There's these very unique constructions of figurines or what have you to and it there seems to be no wrong perspective
Yeah.
a lot of the times when it comes to abstract art. So with that in mind, I'm curious to know what are some of the intended narratives or thoughts or emotions you try to evoke with your work?
That's a great question. And liberation honestly.
Mm,
Like the fact that the work is divorced from a stretcher, yes,
yeah,
allows me to go a bit larger in limited space, but also it's like there's a softness to it. There's an ease, there's a
yeah.
drape, it's like it relaxes a little bit.
Mm,
Um, Unorthodox substrates like using bed sheets, very dreamlike, very imagination, very subconscious. The hair, this idea of, you know, if imagination or ideas or creativity is what comes from people's minds, it's like, well, a literal manifestation, it's like what's coming from my head is
yeah.
hair. Um,
Mm,
and then just sort of folding all of those ideas into one another, this notion of being free, of having a space, like even going back to Little Katarra at the art
yeah.
museum, like there was something about that 8.5 by 11 sheet of just printer paper. It's like whatever goes down in this sheet of paper, it's what I say so.
Yeah.
I have complete agency here. I have complete control here. I do whatever I want here. And so that's really the work is for me about being free, feeling free, getting free. Sometimes it's the only space where you feel like you have any agency or control. Life is
Yeah.
wild. So yeah, that's how the work has served me. And I'm always grateful, like humbled when people see that in the work, because with
Hmm.
it being abstract, like you're saying, it's not so didactic or it's not so straightforward. And so the fact that people are still able to pick up on those motifs when it's just, I love you work, no shade to you, but like orange squiggly lines. I think that speaks to how, the
Yeah,
energy does carry through.
absolutely. And I really love that point about this idea of liberation and like being free. And you said that's something that even little Katara had, as she was, as you were,
Right.
created art back in the day. So has that just been a constant throughout your artistic journey? Like,
Actually, no. My undergrad experience was wonderful in the way that it taught me a rigor and a discipline that would serve me well for keeping my own engine running as an independent artist.
yeah,
But formally, the artists that we were taught about was a very narrow window, very cis het Western canon, older slash dead white guys
you're right.
whose work is brilliant. But my understanding was that in order for my work to be taken seriously, it needed to look like that. It needed to be
Oh, okay.
neutral. It needed to be dark. It needed to be angular. It needed to be academic, formal, cold. And then also at that time, this is what, 20 years ago,
Yeah,
we weren't encouraged to inject identity into the work.
gotcha.
And so there was all of my intellect was there and my heart was there in the way that I was passionate about it. Like I loved that work, but my heart wasn't in it in any sort of way that it reflected who I was as a person. And a sort of
Gotcha.
backhanded compliment I would get all the time was, "Oh, I would never guess that this work was made by a woman."
Oh,
Or,
wow.
"Yeah, I would never guess that this work was made by a black person." It's just because it was so, there was nothing that would indicate a softness, a femininity,
Right.
any fun in the work. It was just like clean. Um, and I still love that work. It's beautiful. And I think it's a great foundation for my practice now. But it wasn't until like 2016, I always had an appreciation for mixed media work.
Hmm.
When I started using synthetic hair, like
Yeah.
I belly danced for many years and I had a trunk full of old wigs and costumes. And I was like, wait a second, if I have abstract landscape as the foundation of my practice, this hair could be clouds, this hair could be tumbleweeds, this hair could be
Gotcha.
anything
Yeah.
in the space, but it's also like, haha, extensions, but it's like an extension of me. Like I have history
Yeah.
with this material as opposed to just like cold wax medium just to build up texture arbitrarily.
Right.
And that sort of clicked. And so for the last 9 years, I've just been like, those were very small works I was experimenting with, like 8 by 10 little canvases. And I've just continued to sort of scale up and see where I can go with it and what I can do with it. It's been a lot of fun.
Great. And you know what? I really want to like dive a bit deeper into like your use of like the mixed mediums from like the synthetic hair,
Mm-hmm.
everything else of that nature. Because to your point, as I'm here in your lovely studio, I do see like a lot of that, the vibrancy, the femininity, like,
Mm-hmm.
and how you're using these mediums in order to like invoke like these feelings of like a more ethereal type.
Thank you for saying
Yeah,
ethereal.
so please, like, let's talk about a bit more about that. Like, so what kind of, so you was talking about your inspiration, right? Like with like the belly dancing, you had like the hair and the
Hmm.
wigs and your own lived experience as well, going to getting your hair done.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit more?
um yeah, I guess it just seemed so appropriate, like macro micro kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's like in the micro, like it meant so much to me. Like my mom always did our hair growing up. Like I went to the salon a handful
Mm,
of times with them,
yeah.
and then I learned how to do my own hair. And so it was like a material that was so familiar, but then learning how to use it in this new way and seeing it's like the function preceded the meaning. It's like at first I was like, this is just like a cool way to add texture. But the more I thought about it, the more it had so much baggage isn't the word that I wanted to use. It had so much sort of meaning already imbued into it. It was like, this is already going to invoke so many ideas. Like if you're just looking at it as an object, it's like, oh, that's a cool fiber to apply. If you
Yeah.
happen to be a Black American woman, or really a woman of African descent in any
Hmm.
space or in any country, and you happen to see this work, you know exactly what it is. And it's just like, wait a second.
Yeah.
And so it felt like sort of this coded recognition. It felt like, speaking a language a little bit that, everyone might not get. It had so much weight to it that
Yeah.
I don't know, it became exciting to use that as opposed to just, I always liked work that had texture, dimension,
Hmm.
and just using other material like spackling paste or
Yeah.
insulation, like but it felt arbitrary, cold, formal. And this felt like it actually meant something to me. So that helped. I think that answered the question.
Oh, absolutely. In many ways. So yeah. So going back to your artist journey, right? So,
Hmm.
we have young Katarra who was getting introduced to the arts, and at that early stage, you had this sense of liberation of I have agency with this little sheet of paper.
Hmm.
You know, going through like academia, kind of got put into a box a little bit for a period of time.
Hmm.
But in 2016, you got back into the liberation bag, and we're using like mediums that like speak to your experience.
Yeah.
So, as we're in this current phase of your artistic journey,
Hmm.
like what's like the big themes like that's happening right now as you think about your creativity?
Um, Expansion, exploration,
Okay.
always keeping it fresh for myself, because I think that particularly in a time with social media, people are very concerned about like a recognizable brand. And I think that
Mhm.
it's very tempting to do the thing that has gotten a good response or a great deal of visibility over and over and over again. And that makes a lot of sense. And it's what a lot of people tell you to do if you want to be a successful artist, which by some standards, some people might say I am, some people might say I'm not. But when I look through art history, the people who had the most expansive and illustrious careers are the people who were always pivoting, always trying something new in their practice, even if it was only painting. Um, he's a controversial example, but one thing you can say about Pablo Picasso is
Mhm.
that all right, I'm doing blue, I'm done with blue. Okay, I'm
Yep.
doing cubism, I'm done with cubism. Okay, now we're doing tapestries. Now it's like it was
Mhm.
always, he was never afraid to switch it up. And so while the underpinnings of my work, I think, are the same, especially like in terms of material over the past 10 years, my methods have changed, my substrates have changed. And it's like, I'm always like, it's like juggling, like keeping a bunch of balls in the air. It's like I'm always trying to throw a new element in
Yeah.
to keep myself on my toes and not get too comfortable. And because I want the practice to feel new for me every time. And I want the works to feel fresh and different from one another. Um, so yeah, experimentation, exploration, expansion. That's where I'm really at now, trying to just make sure that I'm always a little bit scared in the practice.
And that's a great point because oftentimes it's in our moments of fear and uncomfortability where the most growth occurs, right? And
Yeah.
so speaking to this idea of, expansion, exploration, trying out new mediums, new styles, like I think that's great. Like as artists, you should have the agency to do so.
Hmm.
Can you speak to how important it is for however you want to call them, your collector community, your patrons, those who support you to like kind of be with you during this process? Just because, oftentimes it's so, as people we're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just want like the same thing
Hmm.
from a artist, whether that's in fine arts, music,
Hmm.
filmography, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
Um, if I'm being incredibly transparent, um, part of why I'm able to be so free is that I don't really have a collector base. It's like I'm in a place where I'm really only making the work for me. And
mm,
people who have chosen to support the practice or support me as patrons have been fully on. It's my sense of adventure
yeah,
that they were supporting. And so I've been really grateful. I mean, it's, if you want to go back to that point about fear, it feels like walking on water every day. Every day I wake
mm,
up and I'm like, do I re enter the job market? It's been 6 years of doing this in studio
yeah,
full time, and it's been a beautiful experience, but always,
yeah,
very deeply uncertain. I
mm-hmm,
feel I feel like it's not that people don't want to pursue their passion. I feel like it's these moments of uncertainty, one of which I'm
yep,
very much in right now, that are the deterrent. It's like I just can't take the not knowing. And
yeah,
I've just had a lot of practice in the not knowing. But also say, to answer your actual question, I'm fortunate that the support that I have received has been in direct relation to how much respect they have for the fact that I am the kind of artist who's always going to want to grow.
yeah. That's great. So, as the artist who's like constantly looking for growth and development, and I know you have some, I heard offline some of your accolades. Can you tell us about some of the proudest moments within your artistic career?
Honestly, they're the ways in which I've been able to serve.
Yeah.
Um, I went to Skidmore for undergrad, and I've been invited back to speak once a semester for the past several years running to the arts and administration departments,
Mm,
to one of the courses for that department. And the questions that the students have, the conversations that we have, my like students who have become mentees of mine,
mm,
um, the times when I'm able, because like it can feel very insular. I'm in studio, I'm by myself all the
yeah.
time, and I have all these thoughts and all of this experience. And when that is of any benefit to anyone, it like that's when my heart kind of swells up. Or like moments of community. There's a wonderful artist who put me on the VIP list for Armory. I thought it was going to be for 1 year, and it just keeps renewing. And so I keep going. And every time I go and you're seeing like these world class galleries, these blue chip galleries,
Mm-hmm.
and all of this work that can kind of like make you feel very small or very unsuccessful or very broke. um, I always end up running into so many of my friends.
Wow.
And it's like moments like that where it's like, no, I must be a decent community member because everyone that I see like wants a hug and wants to have a conversation. And so
Mm,
like that for me feels like will make me emotional if I think about it too long. But that
yeah.
has like stuff like that is what has felt the most like success to me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've had a little New York Times feature from when I did Miami Basel. There was a snapshot of my work for CNN World last year, and it's like that stuff is cool. It really like it's great. It's affirming, but it doesn't mean as much, I guess, as I thought that it would mean.
Yeah.
And those moments where I'm like up late with a group of artists and we're sitting in a hotel lounge having drinks and shooting the shit, like that's
Yeah.
what like feels like being a real artist. Like that's what
Yeah.
it feels like to me.
But I think with that perspective, it really speaks to part of the beauty and real ethos of fine art, which is it's like one of the best, if not the absolute best tool for bridging community and like really fostering relationships with one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as we were saying offline, art in many ways is universal, right? Just based upon what we see visually,
Yeah,
you can communicate things that sometimes language or words simply cannot, right?
absolutely.
So it kind of makes sense that, and I do want to amplify this that, you have been in the New York Times and, work's been seen on CNN, you've been in cool galleries and whatnot.
Yeah.
But, to your point, like the ability to be part of the community and impacting the community in a positive way is probably even more rewarding.
Yeah. No, it's affirming because like institutions can be, you know, those things change or they
Yeah.
can be flaky or whatever it is, but I feel like having the respect of my peers is something that
Yeah.
means a lot to me.
Okay, Katarra. So tell me, like, what keeps you up at night in terms of what's next for your like projects or
Right?
ambitions? Like, what's keeping you up? What are you excited about?
Kind of that uncertainty, honestly. I think that you know, the next exhibition is never guaranteed. A
Yeah.
sale is never guaranteed. And so um wrestling with this idea that for the sake of my passion, I really have sacrificed stability in a lot of ways. And but also sort of making peace with that because like in the grand scheme of things, it's like this is so grim, but like an asteroid could hit the planet, like who know, like anything could happen. And so I guess what keeps me up is, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Or
Yeah.
feeling like I'm sort of walking in the dark a lot and can only sort of like see from day to day. But then what comforts me is that like no matter what happens, I know that I spent as much of my time in this
Mm-hmm.
one life as possible doing the thing that I feel like I was sent here to do and
Mm.
doing it to the best of my ability and enjoying my time and enjoying my life, even when it seemed scary or strange or difficult or other people didn't understand. So it's both sides, I guess.
I love it. And the last question I have for you would be for the person who's watching this, who may be either an artist or a collector, or they have just a love for fine art,
Mhm.
and but for whatever reason, they have something that's holding them back from making it the next step in their fine art journey. What would you say to them?
Um, I'd say one, take the pressure off of yourself. Like, yes, I am up to my hairline in it, but working a full time job and also making art doesn't make you any less of an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Only collecting very small things or collecting things that you can afford or things that you love that your friends make doesn't make you any less of a collector. It's like it doesn't, I'm very intense and extreme in my approach of just like fully submerging myself in this life and in this world. But you can access it at any level. And so bit by bit, like one of my favorite examples is I think about Lauryn Hill. She's dropped one album. Is anyone going to sit here and say, well, Lauryn Hill's not a real artist? Lauryn
Right.
Hill's not a real musician because she only. No, of course
Mm-hmm.
not. And so at whatever level you are able to engage to comfort you, affirm your soul, and make you feel good about, being able to access it.
Great. And finally, Katara, where can people follow you and tune in and even support some of your art?
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. I have my website, www.katarrapeterson.com, KATARRAPETERSON, because it's a lot of name. And inquiries are welcome. And the only platform that I'm on is Instagram, my whole government name, Katarra Larae Peterson, Larae in the middle. If you caught the spelling of the first one, I won't take you through it again.
Great. Well, thank you very much,
It
Katara.
was a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. This is Mamadou with Timbuktu, signing out.